You can't even cook properly. Bring me my food now, my husband yelled as he stormed into the kitchen. His face was angry when he saw the dishes weren't finished. You're driving Mom crazy with your carelessness. At that moment, a stack of plates fell off the table and crashed to the floor. My husband stayed calm. This is your fault. You shouldn't have stacked them like that, he said before turning and walking out. When my father-in-law heard the noise, he rushed in. Are you okay? He asked, looking concerned. But when he saw me, he went quiet. I'm going to ask my wife what's going on here. You should come too, he said in a low voice, sending a chill down my spine. My name is Helen Davis. I'm 32 years old, and I've been married to my husband Arlo, who is 35, for almost a year. Before we got married, I worked as a nurse at a small pediatric clinic, but I recently moved to a general hospital to improve my skills. Although we've been married for a year, we're still considered newlyweds. We've been living with my mother-in-law since we got married. Arlo wanted to stay with her because he was worried about her being alone while his dad worked out of town. At first, I thought living with her would be nice and that we'd support each other during busy times, but I was wrong. The morning after my first night shift at the new hospital, I came home exhausted and dizzy. I had worked from midnight to 8:30 a.m. A schedule I wasn't used to. When I got home, my mother-in-law, Tiana, immediately started yelling. It was 9 a.m., and Arlo was at work. Neighbors could probably hear her outside, but that didn't stop Tiana from cornering me and yelling. You didn't even make me breakfast. What are you thinking? I was confused and said, what breakfast? I made breakfast last night before going to work. Did Arlo eat it all? But she kept yelling. Tired, I decided to make breakfast for her again. You're so inflexible and exhausting, she grumbled as I set the food in front of her. She didn't thank me, and after one bite, she complained. It's too salty. I ignored her and tried to leave to get some rest, but she stopped me. Hey Helen, where are you going? You still have dishes to clean, she demanded. I'm sorry, Tiana, I just finished my shift. Could you please clean them? I asked politely. She replied, cleaning up is part of cooking. I left the cleaning and laundry for you to do. If you're taking a break, you need to do those things first. I was so tired, but I realized she wouldn't let me rest, so I did the chores she asked. Recently, she had been dropping hints, like saying, when you have a child, leave the housework to me, making it clear she wanted grandchildren. Arlo is her only child, so Tiana is focused on me having children. One day, she bragged about her friend's daughter-in-law getting pregnant on their honeymoon. Another friend's daughter-in-law already had 3 kids, and Tiana said, I can't wait to meet my grandchildren. I do want to have a baby, partly to escape her constant nagging, but no matter what I tried, like taking supplements or visiting a fertility shrine, I still couldn't get pregnant. Finally, after finishing all the chores, I told Tiana, I'm going to take a break now, but before I could even sit down, she smiled and said, thank you for your hard work, but it's almost lunchtime. Pasta is fine for me. Exhausted, I finally managed to get to bed around noon. Later, I brought up the fertility treatment with Arlo. The doctor at the clinic wants us to come together to make a treatment plan. Could you free up your Saturday morning? I asked him. What's that? I've never heard of that before, Arlo replied, looking surprised. You told me to go to the hospital because you were worried about us not having children. I reminded him. I did say that, but why do I have to go? He asked, sounding annoyed. Fertility treatment needs both the husband and wife to cooperate, I explained. The doctor said your reproductive health is just as important as mine. They'll check your side to make sure everything's normal. But my husband cut me off. Why don't you do that alone? It's none of my business. It is your business, I said, feeling frustrated. This is about us, isn't it? Every time I see your mom, she asks me why we don't have children yet. Don't speak badly about my mother, Arlo snapped. It's your fault because you're infertile. Fix it. I pleaded. I need your help to do this. The doctor said a semen analysis is important for fertility testing. I'm healthy and there's nothing wrong with me. Arlo cut me off again. We have a good marriage, and I have plenty of sperm. There's no need for a semen test. Then prove it to me, I challenged him. How would you feel if your colleague saw you in a place like that? Are you trying to humiliate me? Arlo asked. Anyway, I'm definitely not going. I wondered if I had asked him the wrong way. As Arlo pulled the covers over his head, signaling he was done talking, I looked down at him, sighed deeply, and sat on the edge of the bed, feeling defeated. It's common for nurses to work night shifts, with schedules that vary depending on where you work. My new job has a 3-shift system, with 4 or 5 late night shifts and about 8 night shifts a month. but the problem wasn't the irregular work schedule. It was my mother-in-law's constant orders when I was at home. Nurses are supposed to get a break from day shifts after working nights, but since I had to take care of the house, I almost never got a day off. If I had known this is what it would be like, I never would have changed jobs. Lately, my mother-in-law's criticism had been getting worse. It's hard to believe, but when we first got married, she never pressured me or expected me to do housework. I wonder if things changed because of my fertility issues. I was healthy and a bit fuller when we first got married, but now I had become so thin. I looked sickly, yet, somehow, neither my mother-in-law nor my husband seemed to notice. Maybe it was because we saw each other every day, and they didn't notice the change. One summer day, my husband came to me excitedly with an idea. "We're going to celebrate my mother's 60th birthday this Sunday," he said. "She's really excited and wants to invite a lot of friends, so I need you to take care of the preparations." He handed me a piece of paper with a list of guest names and contact information, as well as a detailed menu, all in Tiana's handwriting. She had even written down the tableware and the brand of liquor she wanted, and the order she wanted the food served in. I was surprised by the number of guests. 10 people? I said, unable to hide my surprise. That's a lot of food for only 10 people, and it's on Sunday, right after my late shift. I reminded Arlo that my mother said the day would be good for her. He replied, "You'll be fine. You're always up past noon anyway. The celebration is at noon, so it won't be an issue." Then he left the room, leaving me stunned. I didn't think either of them would help me, and I was sure they wouldn't. It was the morning of my mother-in-law's 60th birthday celebration. As usual, I came home from my late-night shift feeling dizzy and did what my mother-in-law asked. I had done the laundry and cleaning the night before, but since Arlo ate some of the food I had bought earlier, I had to go shopping again. Before I could even start cooking the main course, the guests began arriving. My mother-in-law, dressed up, showed the guests around, while I hurriedly prepared drinks, dishes, and glasses. While they were enjoying those, I tried to get the main course ready. I was running out of time, but I kept working hard to get everything prepared. Then, my husband came into the kitchen, shouting, "What are you doing, Helen? You're late." It was probably because his mom asked him to say that. Just as I was finishing the main course, Arlo stormed into the kitchen, looking upset when he saw the unfinished dish. "You can't even prep the food right. Bring me the food now. You're making Mom mad," he yelled and left the kitchen with an extra bottle of wine. At that moment, some plates I had stacked on the table fell and broke. I was terrified because those were my mother-in-law's favorite plates. My husband's face stayed calm. "That's your fault. You shouldn't have stacked them like that," he said, then left the kitchen. Of course, he didn't offer to help. I crouched down and silently started cleaning up the broken plates. I hated it. "Why do I always have to do everything?" I muttered to myself. Suddenly, I heard a gentle voice. I turned around, surprised to see my father-in-law, Douglas, standing at the kitchen door with a large package. He must have heard the dishes breaking. "Are you hurt?" he asked, looking concerned. His kind words made me want to cry. I hadn't heard anything like that from anyone in this house for a long time. I hadn't seen Douglas since New Year's Day. He came over to me and helped me gather the broken dishes. Then he looked at all the food and dishes laid out in the kitchen, amazed. "Wow, did you do all this yourself, Helen?" he asked, looking around as if searching for someone who might have helped me. But there was no one. "I had no help," I said in a self-mocking tone. I gathered up the last of the broken plates and stood up. Douglas was speechless. He could see how much I had changed since the last time he saw me. My hair was thin and messy, my skin looked bad, and I had dark circles under my eyes. I no longer looked like the lively person I used to be. Looking at the piles of food in front of me, Douglas seemed to understand the situation. His surprised expression turned to anger when he saw the miserable look on my face. "I'm going to ask my wife what's going on. You should come too," he said in a low voice, one I'd never heard from him before. "I haven't done the dishes yet," I replied. "You don't have to," Douglas said firmly. I resisted, but he comforted me and took me to the living room. My mother-in-law was chatting with the guests and pouring a glass of wine that Arlo had brought. "Hey, Helen, how long are you going to keep me waiting?" my mother-in-law said sharply. "Oh, there you are at last," she added, glancing at Douglas. "Everyone, this is my husband. He's been working out of town and came home just for me," Tiana announced, introducing Douglas to the guests. When my mother-in-law introduced him, the guests greeted him with nods and smiles. Douglas smiled and nodded back. "Thank you very much for coming today. I'm Douglas, her husband. My foolish wife is grateful for your hospitality, he said. Oh my God, Tiana laughed nervously. You called me a foolish wife? This is my birthday, she added. You are foolish, truly, Douglas replied. What? Tiana exclaimed, confused. The mood in the room turned awkward and silent because of that one word. Douglas made me stand next to him, even though I was hiding behind him. He faced the guests. I'd like to introduce you to my son's wife, Helen, he said. Hey, honey, Helen is busy preparing, my mother-in-law tried to explain, but Douglas glared at her, and she stopped talking. A year and a half ago, she married my son. She was a cheerful, smiling young lady, and I was sure they'd have a bright future, but look at her now. She didn't look like this 6 months ago, he said. Some of the guests started whispering, she doesn't look anything like her photos, she's way too skinny. Douglas turned to my mother-in-law and asked, why has she changed so much? Tiana hesitated before responding, well, I don't know, probably because work is too hard. You know, I told you on the phone that she changed hospitals and has been on the night shift since the start of the year. Douglas frowned and said, okay, are all of Helen's colleagues suffering like this? If so, it's a clear violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act. I'll have to contact the union. My mother-in-law quickly defended herself. No, that's not. But my father-in-law interrupted. Are you still pretending to know nothing? I heard that you've been hard on Helen and haven't given her any time to rest. I heard she worked a late-night shift earlier and you made her cook all of this by herself after no sleep and a long shift. Douglas angrily told Arlo that he knew the truth. I had shared everything with him. How? For the past 6 months, I had been treated like a housekeeper with no time off. When Tiana turned her head away, unable to argue, Douglas turned to Arlo. You knew Helen was going through this, so why haven't you done anything? He demanded. Arlo defensively replied, it's between Helen and Mom, I had nothing to do with it. Douglas's voice rose. What did you vow at the wedding? Didn't you promise to protect and support her and make her happy? Does she look happy to you? Arlo stammered. Well, of course, there were times when I thought it was a little much, but Mom said it was normal for a woman without children to do all this. Douglas shook his head in disbelief. As a husband, you should put your partner before your mother. Have you already forgotten how your first marriage ended because you pushed her too much? Arlo's face turned red. I was shocked. I knew he had been divorced before, but I didn't know his ex-wife had been treated badly like I was. It all made sense now. Tiana suddenly snapped. Let me tell you something. This is the kind of work she should be doing as a woman without kids. It's been a year since they got married, and she still can't have a baby. She's an unfit wife. Douglas's tone turned cold. Even if she were infertile, you can't blame her for that. You're just taking it out on her. Tiana shouted back. How dare you? You've been gone for so long. What do you know about it? You have no idea. Then, she broke down in tears. I felt a little sorry for her, but it didn't erase the pain she had caused me over the last 6 months, especially since she had treated Arlo's ex-wife badly too. I looked her in the eye and said firmly, I don't think you'll be getting any grandchildren for a long time. I then pulled out a few papers from my room. These are the results of the tests I took at the fertility clinic: blood tests, AMH, uterine and fallopian tube drainage tests, anti-sperm antibody tests. Everything was fine. My body is normal. If the situation was the same with his ex-wife, can't you guess what's wrong? I glared at Arlo. The problem is with you. Arlo stammered. You had a hunch, didn't you? That's why you didn't want to have the test done. And yet, instead of protecting me, you treated me like a housekeeper, just like your mother does. I sighed and added, I did love you, so I thought I could keep the test results to myself. But you yelled at me again and wouldn't help me. Also, apparently, you treated your ex-wife terribly too, so I just don't care anymore. Wait a minute, my husband begged. It's not true, I can't be infertile, right? Well, why don't you get a proper examination? I shot back, but regardless of the results, it's not important to me anymore. With that, I turned my back on him, who kept shouting excuses, and left the room. I could hear the guests leaving just before I closed the door. Later, my husband and I officially divorced through an attorney. Arlo was very insistent, but thanks to Douglas recording our conversation, it was proven that I had been emotionally abused by him and Tiana for 6 months. Arlo had a sperm analysis done and was diagnosed with oligospermia. My mother-in-law was furious with him. After the divorce, my ex-parents-in-law also decided to get a divorce. I had hoped that Arlo and Tiana would change their minds after hearing about his ex-wife, but nothing changed. Douglas explained that was why he apologized to me for not understanding the situation earlier and for not urging Arlo to take the semen test before we got married. As for my ex-mother-in-law, she was kicked out and is now living with Arlo in public housing in the same city. Her former friends have cut ties with her, and the rumors about the situation spread, causing Arlo to be shamed at work. 6 months later, my father-in-law introduced me to a man. We dated for 6 months, and now we are happily remarried. He's very reliable and works under Douglas. Just recently, I went to my obstetrician for a checkup and found out that I'm 2 months pregnant. I'm planning to visit Douglas soon to share the news since he helped me escape that awful living situation.